Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Industries Live here on the show floor at reInvent in Las Vegas. It's been a fantastic morning so far and went to the early afternoon. We've had a great series of very insightful conversations with our partners about their business, about what they're seeing here at the show in Las Vegas, how that makes them think about the year ahead, what they're hearing from their customers. It's been, look, honestly, it's been such rich conversation that we've had, and what a way to sort of round out Thursday, this second last day of reInvent. It's been, yeah, just a terrific time. We are super excited to have a conversation with Wiz. Yinon here is here from Wiz. I have to say, I'm going to start this conversation by saying, Yinon, welcome. Very nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Firstly, I want to say that your booth is absolutely fabulous. It was the first booth that really caught my eye when I walked in on the show floor. And he's going to tell us a little bit about it in a minute. But what's really doing it for me with the Wiz booth is you have really harnessed the nostalgia factor. I think it definitely dates you. If you're 20 years old, you may look at your booth and wonder what on earth that is. But as I'm not 20 years old, I walked into that thinking, how cool is this? I've actually been back a couple of times to read all the titles. So why don't we start? Why don't you tell our viewers, tell us about your booth. I want to hear about the inspiration for it, and tell me about, I certainly want to hear about how you came up with all the titles, but give us the rundown. Tell me about it.
Okay, so basically when we're doing booth, we're thinking about the audience that will visit the booth, and we want them to interact with it in a way that will create emotions, like you've mentioned yourself. So one of the things that is truly exciting is the ability to see the faces of people as they interact with the booth and they start looking into the details. And that's how we came up with the idea. Basically, we did like a Wiz video store booth that reminds us of video stores like 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
A blue one with yellow writing that people may or may not be familiar with, but we won't mention. We won't name.
I remember as a kid, I would go to the nearest video store. I would rent like the best movie I just wanted and seeing it and the excitement. And that's what we did. We actually created an experience. You can come to the booth, you can see movies that have a cloud security twist to it if you look good enough, and some activities around it. So thank you for sharing your experience, and this is in the end what we want the conference to be, a bit more than a tech, we all know about the tech, but an experience.
So, it's a little, they have familiar sounding titles, but all twisted a little bit to...
A bit twisted.
Very nice. Very interesting what you did. So I'm Stuart Lepkowsky from the Industries and Solutions team, and Yinon, thank you for being here today. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that security conversation. And you mentioned you put a little twist to it. Everybody's curious at home. What exactly is that twist? Let's go do a little deeper.
So basically, cloud security, we all know it's an utmost importance for the teams. The more we want to adopt the cloud, we have to have it super clear. We have to be super clear about how we are going to basically secure it. And actually, the way we look at it, security is actually the way to accelerate innovation, accelerate the use of new technologies. And that's what we want to achieve using the right security in place. And one of the things we really see that makes the most impact within our customers is really the ability to democratize security. And we call it democratize security because we think in the end security is not only about that one security team that is going to secure what everybody else is building, right? So it's actually about democratizing the way of building security as we build the cloud applications, and then making it secure at the get-go. And it requires we call it the cloud operating model. It requires a bit of a shift from where we've been, let's say, a few years ago or a decade ago. And it requires us to really put the developers, the builders in the center, and provide them with the visibility to the risk, but also with the tooling and the knowledge of how to make the right choice.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Michael, how they're diving in with the developers and bringing them so close to security, right?
100%. Yeah. It's fascinating. I think it's you're really kind of driving a message that really seems to be resonating a lot with customers. Tell me about what feedback you've had from, particularly at the show this year, from your customers, and what are they telling you about how they see this evolving?
So it's really interesting to see that we are maturing alongside our customers, because we can see that it comes in it's almost like a maturity model that you can think about. It starts with gaining visibility to your cloud environment. Wiz is entirely agentless, so it literally takes minutes to connect. and everything just lights up, right? So you can just see through. So visibility is really the first piece. The second pillar is being able to really prioritize risk effectively. We're actually using it, doing it using a graph database, AWS-based, Neptune, thank you for that. So we are basically leveraging a graph in order to correlate the signals and be able to really find the risks that matter in a way that they matter so much that if you just show them to a developer, and this is like the tipping point. If you show them to the developers, the response is not like, oh, this is yet another security risk, I'm gonna ignore it. It's actually, oh, wait. How did you find it? How were you able to correlate it? I need to fix it, but how did you find it? Tell me first. And that's the second phase. And the third phase is actually the democratization. Now, if we get to that level, let's get everybody to the right place, and let's make sure that everybody resolves their criticals. So what we're hearing from customers is that once they get to that democratization level and they are able to really tone down the day-to-day noise, then comes the ability to really move to the next level, and we call it shift left. We launched a product called With Code. It actually allows you conceptually to shift everything you do to do cloud security to the coding phase, right?
Right.
So now, and only after you got control over the noise in your cloud, that you have enough capacity to actually shift to the left, and that's what we're hearing from customers. So how do we take it to the left? How do we do it earlier and earlier? Because now we know how good looks like.
Tell me about how customers are realizing that from a benefit point of view. Obviously, agility, being ahead of security risk before you even get to production or before you even get to testing. So when you're identifying security risk at a coding level, I just imagine the productivity gains are huge.
Exactly, and the feeling that, like the way customers would describe it, and they would just tell you, the experience is amazing. Okay, but behind this, it actually means that it's streamlined into their day-to-day. It's streamlined in a way that they don't even notice. It's not like artificial workflow for them. It just streams throughout their day-to-day.
Yeah, it's very innovative how they've taken the security component and really made it a part of the full development lifecycle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's almost like if it were missing, you think that the developers would say, "Wait, we can't move forward. Something's not here that should be here." Right? So it's really changing that traditional model and bringing security to the forefront. And it's really interesting that you're doing that. There are different things you're seeing at the show that on any of our announcements that you think also change that game a little bit.
Of course, I think that first I will add that it's not only changing the dynamic, it's actually putting security in a position of technical leadership. And that's something very unique when you think about it. And just to tie it back to your question, I think AI was kind of a tipping point, and we've been here at reInvent last year and this year. We keep seeing that AI takes, of course, a lot of attention, if not most of the attention, and AI is almost like the second wave of capabilities into the cloud. So, right, it brings more and more development to cloud.
Right.
And when you ask about what we're hearing, so yes, we're hearing about all of these new innovations. And the interesting thing that security today, while in the past was considered more of a blocker, today security is an enabler, because before we can start adopting the technologies, before you can start adopting the technologies, we are actually in a position where we can say, do we have the right guardrails to actually secure them? And this is like one of the things that is the most exciting, that now security can go ahead, put the guardrails before the technology is actually adopted by the development teams. And this is really one of the things that are, I think, unique in where security is today, that we have all of this innovation, but at the same time we're thinking, okay, how can we democratize the guardrails, the security, so developers and builders can adopt them as fast as possible?
I mean, the whole mental model around how we think about security has completely shifted over the last few years, and for me, that's an absolute game changer in terms of, like you said, seeing it as an enabler rather than a blocker, seeing security as being an accelerator. Tell me about, I'm interested from your point of view. When you come to a show like this, there are a lot of announcements, you're seeing a lot of things from other partners and innovations. How do you balance your own innovation path and where you're headed and trying to sort of take in all of the best of what, new services are being announced and balancing the new, opportunities for you to innovate and accelerate? Tell me about how you see that from your own point of view.
customers are the best voice we need to listen to. Basically, customers are our best indicator of what we should be embracing into our ecosystem and how we should be leveraging. There are great examples even if with Amazon Q, right? So Amazon Q was launched. Wiz is basically integrated into Amazon Q, so you can query through this on the Wiz graph. So that's one example. Another example is WIN. We call it WIN, the Wiz Integration Network ecosystem. We have more than 150 certified partners, and it's all a result of customers basically coming over to Wiz and asking us, okay, can you please create this shared use case together so we can innovate? A great example, we've just launched an integration with CyberArk, which is basically managing privileged identities going into AWS. And we have this really nice joint story that we built with our mutual customers of how can we use Wiz in order to identify all of these privileged users, and how can we actually leverage CyberArk in order to control the access so we can make it secured using the CyberArk standard of JIT and provisioning these permissions. So I think we can see so many of these better together stories that we can build with the ecosystem, and it's all thanks to the technologies that allows us to integrate, but also thanks to customers that are basically asking us to bring more.
Yeah. Awesome. I think you said customers 12 times, so I'm going to ring a bell for our customers.
You're speaking our language. You know,
exactly.
we like to consider ourselves extremely customer obsessed, and I love what you said about, you know, customers are our first voice. If we go to our customers and try to tell them what they should do, that's you know never a great start. You know, I'm also fascinated. It's been we've been talking for nearly 10 minutes, and we've barely talked about generative AI. But I'm really interested in, for you, like, how are you thinking about? I'm sure your customers are coming to you all the time and thinking about generative AI, about what it means in terms of securing their generative AI workloads, security, and how they think about generative AI in their business. Like, tell me about how you're having those conversations with your customers.
Yeah, of course. I think actually Wiz has two hats when it comes to AI. One, we have the hat of how do we help organizations to secure their AI applications, and second, we actually have the hat of how do we leverage AI internally in order to improve Wiz.
Yes.
And customers are asking us about both, obviously. In terms of how we help organizations to secure AI, last year at reInvent, we were actually the first in market to launch the AI security posture management capabilities. You don't need, like, it basically allows you to connect to your cloud environment, and then we can analyze all of the AI services you're using and provide you with the security best practices out of the box. So this is like a massive, I would say, ability of organizations to first, and that's probably the most important, identifying the discovery capability of who is using AI, which technologies are being used, which applications, and how are they set up in the environment. That's one of the very important aspects of AI security that we allow every customer to benefit. On how we leverage AI internally, it's actually very interesting to see how in 1 year we were able to embed into Wiz at least a dozen different scenarios in which we leverage AI, whether it comes to auto-generating threat. We just launched a Wiz Defend. As part of Wiz Defend, it was obvious for us that part of the response to threats, we need to provide AI-based recommendations, right, that are very tailored to the threat we have identified. Same thing about remediation. I want to fix a configuration in a bucket or a database. I can do it in 100 different ways. I can use CloudFormation or Terraform or the AWS CLI. I want to be able to meet the customer exactly where they are. So we can ask them questions about what's your remediation strategy, and then AI can simply generate the remediation steps. We have AI in the form of an assistant, right, like Amazon Q. So I can query on the graph. I can create policies using AI in a natural language. This lowers the bar and allows more and more users actually to gain value, extract value from Wiz.
Yeah, and I would imagine you've wrapped that into pen testing, right? So if we take a look at what customers are doing to avoid security risks and use pen testing, can you talk a little bit about pen testing and how this life cycle of learning and growing and bringing it from the developers, line of sight, and then bring it into pen testing to avoid risk? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, I think this is also, we can tie it to the partner ecosystem, because one of the things that Wiz is doing very effectively. It's actually describing to you what is your external attack surface. And when we are able to explain the attack surface and provide you like what is out there that can be attacked on your estate, then we have partners that are leveraging this information, and through our integration, we are basically able to generate a better together story that they are able to try and pen test the environment, and it's almost like we can meet in the middle, right? They can show that they can access from the outside, and we can show that we are able to find the root cause analysis behind it. And I think that as we leverage more and more AI technologies, the ability to pen test from the outside becomes better and smarter, and it's less prescriptive and more, I would say, explorative, thanks to AI technologies. And I think that we're going to see in the next months, even, I wouldn't say a year, but in the next months, we're going to see improving technologies of AI probing into your environment in order to make sure that you are securing your bases. And it's better that we do that before the bad guys do, right?
Yeah, it's active pen testing.
Active pen testing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just so fascinating, isn't it? Just how the entire developer and development experience is completely being changed by generative AI, whether it be, documentation inline testing, pen testing. All of the heavy lifting jobs that used to be so much work for a developer are really getting an accelerator and a shot in the arm from generative AI. I think that, like, for me, we've had this conversation a number of times this week with customers and partners. But anytime you have a heavy lift for a highly skilled professional, there's an opportunity for a generative AI use case. And so I think we're just seeing the beginning. I'm sort of excited, to think about, like, 12 months from now, we're sitting here. Well, I'm excited to see what's going to change this year as well, because I think that we're just getting started. What do you think?
No, I agree, 100%. Every time there is a task that requires massive labor that is repeated, then we can ask ourselves, how can we introduce AI in a way that can accelerate, in the end, the developer in our case, or the security analyst? How can we provide them more tools to make them more effective? And I think that in the end, it allows us really to focus on the essence, right? So we can really focus on, for instance, choosing the right strategy, considering what we know about the environment. It can also allow us to learn a lot about a lot more cover, a lot more technologies, right? So if you think about one of the big challenges we have today is how can we keep all of our developers, security analysts up to date on all the latest and greatest. Actually, it allows us to overcome and bridge over these knowledge gaps quite fast by providing the right recommendation at the right time. And I think that this is an amazing tool that will be integrated into, again, like we've implemented in Wiz in a dozen of different use cases. I think it's just a great tool to add in every single area, and then we mature these capabilities over time, and I'm sure next year we will be here and it will be
we're going to have a whole lot of other things to talk about.
Yeah, and you'll have all new innovations and things coming to the forefront. We really want to thank you for joining us. It's been a really deep an interesting conversation for our viewers on security and what's going on with cloud and the innovation and pioneering and changes that you're bringing to the table. Michael, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, anything else you've seen this week that you really wanted to share with our viewers? Anything that's really kind of surprised you, or you've gone, holy moly, look at that?
I'll just say that AWS reInvent is an amazing event, and thank you for having it. I think it's an opportunity for the community to come together and really share the latest and greatest, and interact in a one-on-one. So thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. And for everybody who's at reInvent, don't forget to stop by the booth. It's very nostalgic and it's very well done. And congratulations on having a very eye-catching experience to go over there. So.
I'm Stuart Lepkowsky from Industries Live. Michael Schmidt, Yinon Costica from The Wiz. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Up next, we're going to play a little bit more games, take a little bit of a break, and then we have our afternoon session. Looking forward to seeing our viewers there, and thank you.
Thanks, everyone.